Let's jump into BMAR211, Study Unit 7, Chapter 9, where we will discuss managing your customers' roles in service delivery. We've already covered how you should manage your employees' roles, but now you also have to look at your customers, and those are the individuals that mostly will determine the success of your business. Few learning outcomes that we have to cover, 7 in total. Discuss the advantages and disadvantages of customer participation in the service delivery process. Describe the role that the end customer and other customers play in the service delivery process. Explain the different roles that customers play in service delivery. Identify the skills that customers will require to fulfill their role in service delivery processes. And explain what self-service technologies are and demonstrate the role they play in the service delivery process. Also briefly describe how customer participation in the service delivery process can be increased, and then lastly explain how customers can be recruited, educated and rewarded for participating in the service delivery process. Again, you will see the coinciding page numbers. Let's have a look at what this chapter will be all about. So this chapter will analyze the customer's role in service delivery process and the skills that they require to facilitate the service delivery process. Owing to the inseparability of the customer from the service process, remember, in some services you have to be physically present to receive the service, the customer can either contribute or distract from the service process. And there are a number of reasons why organizations have started to promote and encourage customer participation in the service delivery process. Some of these reasons include the existence of more sophisticated customers, better technology, and intensified competition among service organizations. So customers not only consume services, but also play an integral part in the delivery of many services and the outcome of these services. We will also touch on co-production and how that influences customer satisfaction. So when participating in a service for the first time, customers might not know the role they are expected to play in the service delivery process. If you are introducing new technology in the delivery of your service, and it's the first time your customers are exposed to this new technology or way of receiving the service, they might not know what they are supposed to do. And therefore, service organizations need to educate and provide customers with information and instructions about how to use and act during service delivery and the consumption of their service. However, not all customers want to participate in the production of service, while others want to be rewarded for their efforts. Many customers feel that they pay for the service and therefore believe that they do not need to do anything to receive the service. So then service organizations can increase the participation of their customers in the service delivery process by rewarding customers for their efforts. Jumping off to learning outcome 1, you have to know the importance of customers in service delivery and then also the advantages and disadvantages of customer participation. The customer must mostly be present to receive and consume the service, and this I mentioned just previously. In some cases, service organizations want customers not only to be present, but also participate actively in the service delivery process, and this can be referred to as co-production or co-creation. In order for a company or a service organization to achieve this, they require that the organization implement changes, like developing or implementing new technology, for example, the self-service or the ordering counter, retraining their staff because they have to assist the customer or train the customer, educating your customers and changing your distribution channel. It also might be required that the customer take on a new role and learn new skills to participate in the service delivery process. And one example of this is ordering your food at a McDonald's. In the past, as we are familiar, you just went up to the kiosk and you ordered directly from the employee or the cashier. There are self-service machines and you have to input all of the items that you wish to order. And then that gets transferred to the back office and then they prepare your meals or your beverages. So now in that case, a customer for the first time now has to be trained or instructed on how to use this machine. And then employees also need to be retrained because they have to be able to assist customers that are new to this new service process and when something goes wrong with the machine. So there are several advantages and disadvantages for both the customer and the service delivery organization. And this is covered extensively on page 233 to 234. There are several. For example, in terms of the advantages, customers can customize the service to fit their specific needs. Customers can produce the required service faster because if you have different employees and due to the dimension or characteristics of heterogeneity, if the customer is in charge of getting the service themselves, they can do it faster. It is also less expensive because it's a lot easier to maintain a machine than to pay employees. It can increase customer satisfaction because the customer is involved in the service process. There's also improved segmentation. It increases customer and service organization communication. In some cases, this may be to the contrary, and then customers can receive increased benefits such as discount and lower prices because then they don't have to pay employees. There are also disadvantages that you can argue. The first one, the service organization may lose control of the quality of service because the customer is in charge of their own inputs to the service delivery or co-creation. There's also a case where wastage is increased. For example, a self-service buffet, people just help themselves, and at the end of the day, the food gets wasted. Operating costs are increased. You would think it's the contrary, but an organization that decides to make its services available to call centers, for example, will have to have more overhead to deal with. The perception might be created that the organization wants to distance itself from customers. And then lastly, the staff of the service organization might find it stressful to deal with unhappy customers. So have a look at those advantages and disadvantages and understand those for any service organization. When receiving the service, the customer often interacts not only with the employee of the organization, but also with other customers using the same service and with people who might be present in the service environment at the time that the service is being consumed. The physical environment in which the service takes place can also have an impact on the service delivery experience. If you go into a McDonald's and it's dirty, there are cups and leftover meats everywhere on the tables, there's flies buzzing, that will have a significant impact on your experience. And that relates back to the tangibles characteristic. And another example can be spur. So any restaurant that you can think of, any service experience that you can think of, the physical environment should be clean from a service provision perspective. It should be up to standard, sanitized, and then also pleasurable for the consumers to visit. Otherwise, they will not do so. Other things that we need to consider as part of learning outcome 2 is then the customers that receive the service and other customers in the service organization or that are also going to receive the service. So in terms of the customers receiving the service, this is also referred to as the end customer. So customers often play a role in how effective the service delivery process will be. Through their action or inaction during the service process, the customer will influence the success or failure of the service delivery process, and this will impact the degree of customer satisfaction. The example there is Weight Watchers. For example, if you are participating in a program where it is up to you to eat healthily, to go to training sessions, visit the gym, and you don't do that, then it will definitely, you as a customer that played a role will not be as effective in relation to what is required to have a successful service experience. The level of customer participation differs from service to service depending on how involved the customer is expected to be in service delivery. If you take the Happy Island water park, this was one of the examples in this module, or any water park for that matter. So this is where you are customers receiving the service. So you paid for a ticket for entrance and now you are enjoying a fun day with the family, friends, whatever the case may be. You are going down the slides, you are enjoying meals, you are lounging, you are sunbathing, all of that as part of the service experience. But now you also have to consider what the impact will be of other customers and how the organization can manage or minimize the negative impact, because you can go with your friends and there will be kids everywhere and they are naughty, they are jumping lines, or there are adults that don't look after their children. There are people that are wasting their food papers, or they are creating a mess and just leaving it as is, and that will impact your experience significantly. So then in regards to other customers, the actions or inactions of the other customers will influence how the customer evaluates the quality of the service and how satisfied he or she will be with it. So you can take a theme park like Gold Reef City, and you can take a water park. Gold Reef City, you have it's a similar experience. You have rides that you can enjoy with your entrance fee, and then you also have to stand in queues and then wait for your turn to enjoy a certain ride. But then if people keep jumping the line, you will have a negative experience and it will impact your experience of that park. So if it's not being regulated or maintained by the park officials or the park staff, then it will determine your evaluation of that in terms of how they manage other customers. So different roles can be identified according to whether the customer is giving or requesting advice from other customers. In terms of receiving advice, two types of customers can be identified. So there are help seekers, and there are also proactive help seekers. But now there are also two types of customers. Those who give advice, these are reactive helpers who like to interact although they do not like to communicate directly. And there are also proactive helpers who like to talk and give advice to other customers. Not only do the actions of other customers contribute to the overall perception of the service quality, but also the image that is created by the other customer while the service is being consumed. Consumers being served at the same time, but who have incompatible needs, can also have a negative effect on the service delivery process. And then you can see the example of a young person visiting a holiday resort or a theme park or anything like that, wants to have fun with friends, but older people might just want to relax and sunbathe, and then the actions of the younger group will influence the older people's experience. And also the example of a hotel. But in other cases, customers provide a social dimension to the service delivery process and help the consumer to achieve their service outcomes. And then you can also have the look at the example of a rugby match in the text.
Now we continue with learning outcome 3, where you have to identify and describe the customer roles. Customers play 3 roles in service delivery. So they can be the employee, so this is a productive resource. They can be contributors to service quality and satisfaction, but they can also be the competitors, but this will mainly be a focus on business to business customers. The first one, customers as an employee. Customers participating in the service delivery process contribute time, effort, and other resources to successful delivery. The customer can thus be regarded as an employee of the organization or as part of the organization due to his or her input into the service delivery process. Since you are ordering the food yourself via the self-service kiosk or machine at McDonald's, you can be seen as an employee. The question a service organization like McDonald's should ask regarding a customer playing a role as a productive resource is whether the customer must be made part of the productive process or kept away. Customers react differently in the service process, and this uncertainty about their actions and attitudes can make an organization decide to separate the customer from the production process. If an organization allows the customer to perform certain tasks themselves, it can increase productivity. So if the customer is definitely involved in ordering their own meals because of language barriers, it might take a lot longer for a person with a stammer, with not a clear accent to order food, where on a machine they can just click on the images and prices, then this will definitely increase productivity. But then if it turns out that it is not successful because the machines keep failing or the customers break the machines because they become frustrated because it's not reacting or not working, then there's a decision to be made whether it's a productive service process or not. You can also have a look at the Old Mutual example in the textbook. Customers as contributors to service quality and satisfaction. And this relates to customers as co-producers or co-creators of the service, and they contribute to the satisfaction they experience and the quality of the service that they receive. By using the service of the organization, customers want to satisfy their own specific needs and are not focused on or concerned about whether they contribute to the organization's efforts. Through participation in the service delivery process, a customer can satisfy his or her needs, and then dissatisfaction with the service can occur if the customer fails to take the correct actions when receiving the service. If you are the customer at the water park or Gold Reef City that continuously break the rules, then if you do not take the correct action, you will be dissatisfied because you will be chased away. By participating in a service, the customer may even find the process enjoyable. It might be fun for people to go on the self-service counter and create their own meals or prepare their own meals and put the order through themselves. They might find it's enjoyable that way. Looking at customers as competitors, as I mentioned, this will be a business-to-business focus. Increasing customer participation in the service delivery process of the organization means that the customer takes over certain tasks and responsibilities that were originally provided by the service organization themselves. These changes in roles can over time make the customer a competitor of the organization. In taking over tasks and responsibilities, the customer might not need the service provider any longer. As a consequence to this, over time, the employees of those organizations may become so skilled that they reach a point at which they no longer need the manufacturer's backup service. And this is why an agreement on the exact role of a customer in the service delivery process is crucial, particularly if the customers are expected to perform some service tasks themselves. Have a look at the example in the textbook, but many organizations that chose to outsource non-core functions such as cleaning, gardening, information technology, data storage, research, transport, or security to an outside service provider do so specifically so that they can focus on core functions. In these cases, they are no longer burdened with wage negotiations, leave arrangement, and other administrative functions and can terminate a service easily instead of doing it themselves and having all of those issues. But there are several different factors that the service organizations need to consider when deciding to perform services in-house or to make use of external service providers. And this includes knowledge capability, resource capability, time capacity, financial rewards, psychological rewards, trust, and control. So briefly, knowledge capability. If the organization has the knowledge capability to provide the service themselves, it may keep the service in-house. So if they have the knowledge or the employees with training to do the data storage or research themselves, then they have the knowledge, they can do it themselves. But if not, they need to outsource that. Resource capability. So organizations that decide to perform a service themselves rather than outsourcing it should ensure that they have the required resources. So resource capability. So these resources including finances, labor, materials, expertise, and infrastructure. In terms of time capacity, services that are not time bound could be produced by organizations internally. The financial implications for the organization will often determine whether the internal performance or the outsourcing option will be chosen. So, for example, outsourcing office cleaning, the organization will not have the burden of the overheads and wages issues. Psychological rewards. The satisfaction, joy, and happiness that the customer associate with the internal or external exchange influence the decision to outsource, and often these considerations are of non-economic nature. Then trust. The level of confidence that the customer has in the exchange option will determine which one will be selected. And then control. Customers might feel that they will lose control and therefore may decide to keep the exchange process internal. So have a look at these several factors and be able to apply that to your case study in the activity. Moving on to learning outcome 4. There you have to be able to discuss the certain skills that customers require, and there are 7 in total. In terms of being inert and idle, the customer needs no special skills and is passive in the service delivery process. So you need absolutely no skill. If you're going for a procedure, a COVID test, an operation, you don't need any skill. You just have to be inert and idle and sit there and let the procedure take place by the skilled individuals. As an instructor, the customer must have excellent communication and decision-making skills to educate and transfer knowledge. In this case, the service delivery depends heavily on the ability of the customer to articulate his or her needs and clearly communicate his or her expectations. So in terms of an architect drawing plans for your new home, you want a certain room to be a certain way, and you need to be the instructor with the knowledge to direct them accordingly. As an ingredient, so you are the ingredient in this case, under certain circumstances, the customer must have skills that relate to clear and full representation of information relevant to the service. So applying for a new bank account, you should be able to identify to the consultant which account you need, and you are the ingredient to initiate this process. Being the master, here the customer must possess the required skills to complete the task during service delivery with the service organization. So learn a new language with a tutor. So you have to master this new skill. Being an auditor, the customers are capable of judging the service quality and are trained to observe, know the subject matter well, think analytically, and communicate effectively. So new IT systems, the user provide insights into whether this is successful or not. As a marketer, the customer must possess the skill to select a target group to which to communicate his or her opinions, choose where and when to give advice regarding the service, and be convincing in transferring the message. So a self-help kiosk or helping other customers. Then being a decision maker and a hunter. This skills refers to a customer who has both the cognitive skills and the ability to make a judgment regarding his or her needs and situation. So any service where you need to make constant choices and choose or find better alternatives. Moving on to a major part of our fourth technological revolution and a way many organizations are transforming their service delivery is self-service technologies. And There are several ways that self-service technologies provide value to customers, and we refer to 4 specific ways. The first one, it gives customers ease of access to information, for example, bank balances on your app or on the ATM. Secondly, it offers customers different methods of support. For example, customers can apply for a loan electronically without going to the bank. So it's different modes of support. And then also, because the service is technology based, there will be a consistent level of service. For example, with no staff involved and then therefore eliminating heterogeneity, you can expect consistent service levels. And then the fourth one, customers will have a first-class customer experience because they are in control of the service process. For example, you as the customer can buy a ticket for a movie or the theme park without standing in a long queue. If you want to go to Happy Island, for example, you can book online, pay a small booking fee, and you can bypass the queues that when you arrive on the day, it stands for quite a few meters and you can bypass that because of self-service technology. But then there are 4 different types that you should be aware of, and this is on page 241. So it's the first one is telephone and interactive voice response system, interactive freestanding kiosks like in McDonald's, internet-based systems, and video DVD CD-based technology. So have a look at more details on that page. In the next slide, you will see a complete presentation with more details regarding self-service technologies from Marketing 91, and this will also be linked on the Ifundi page below this video. So for more details, since it's so limited in this textbook, have a look at that video for how a service organization can incorporate self-service technologies in their service delivery process. Now looking at the second to last learning outcome 6, and as a service organization or business owner of a service, you want to enhance your customers' participation in your service delivery process. Customer involvement levels with the service moderate the perceived relational benefits offered by the service provider. In other words, positive relations and responses influence behavior like loyalty, word of mouth, and customer satisfaction. This is straightforward. If you are happy with a certain service organization, it increases your loyalty and word of mouth to other individuals. The purpose of customer participation is to increase customer satisfaction and productivity in the service delivery process. To enhance customer participation and commitment, the organization has to communicate effectively with its customers. Customer communication can be done by implementing customer contact programs in which the organization takes an active role in contacting customers. So in this case, we are using WhatsApp, we are using Ifundi, and we are also using Zoom as a tool to enhance our participation and contact via students and the lecturer. But now in the process of enhancing customer participation, the organization also develops or promotes its brand. The 7 essential elements in the promotion of brand loyalty among customers are as follows, and there are 7 essential elements to promote your service organization's brand loyalty. The first one is customer brand identification, and this relates to the customer's psychological or emotional connections to the service brand. For example, if the brand is complimented, the customer using the brand may perceive the compliment to be directed at them as a result of the psychological connection they feel towards the brand. Then a self-congruity. This is the parallel between the customer self-concept and the brand personality or characteristics that customers feel or experience in the course of forming a customer-brand relationship. Then service value. The value of a service is determined by benefits versus cost. And this we've covered many times in any of the marketing modules or business modules. If an organization can make the customer perceive the benefits to be more than the cost of receiving the service, they will be able to build brand loyalty because the customers will perceive the service as value for money and then also service value. And then brand involvement. The customer's involvement with the service and how important it is to them will determine their brand involvement. As indicated above, the more customers participate in service process, the more likely it is that they will promote the brand and become brand loyal. A fifth one is brand decision involvement. The decision to use a service brand is important and matters to a number of consumers. Brand satisfaction. Customers' overall satisfaction with a brand will determine how they feel towards it. This is as straightforward as it can be. If you are not satisfied with a certain brand, there's no reason to communicate or promote that to anyone, but you will also not be satisfied with that brand. Brand loyalty. Customers who frequent a particular service provider can be seen as being brand loyal, and brand loyalty relates to the behavior of a customer when using the service and their overall attitude towards the brand. There are also several other things that we need to look at in terms of enhancing customer participation, in terms of defining your job as a customer, your individual differences, and also recruiting, educating, and rewarding customers, which is then part of Learning Outcome 7. So, how to define the customer job? The perception of the service environment and the instructions received on how to use the service influence the way in which customers perform their roles when using the service. The organization need to decide on the level of participation that they expect from customers and should define the customers' jobs, quote unquote. Now, there are several factors that determine the customer's participation, and this is down to the level of input from the customer in the form of effort and information that they have to provide, but also the extent to which the customer will co create the service with the service organization. So, this will determine your job. So, there are also three choices regarding customer participation that the management need to make. They can maintain customer participation, increase customer participation, or decide to reduce customer participation. But then the three choices boils down to helping oneself, helping others, and promoting the organization. In terms of helping oneself, when the consumer is helping him or herself, the organization increases the level of customer participation in the service process. In other words, the customer takes on more functions, which means that the organization's productivity will increase, as will customer satisfaction, because they are involved in co creating this service. In terms of helping others, a customer who has experience with a service can assist new customers or help them take a specific action. So, if a person at the water park is not sure how this specific slide or machine operates, the helping others customer can help these new customers and help them to increase their participation. But also promoting the organization. The customer's job responsibilities may include sales or promotion elements. In the promotion of an organization, word of mouth endorsement by customers can influence the other customers' perceptions and attitude. And before you go to any new service or purchase any new product for that matter, usually we go to reviews before we spend all of that money, especially if it's a high involvement or high cost product. In terms of individual differences, customers differ in the way in which they want to participate in a service process. As mentioned in the start, not everyone wants to be as involved as other individuals. Some customers may enjoy partaking in the service process, while others may simply prefer to receive the service and not participate in the service delivery process at all, because they feel that they are paying for the service and need not do anything. Others prefer to sit passively and not participate, and then organizations need to develop plans, therefore, to deal with the needs of different segments. As part of Learning Outcome 7, you need to be able to recruit, educate, and reward your customers for introducing this new advanced way of enhancing or promoting participation. For example, if you have a new process or using self-service technology. Service organizations experience difficulties when customers start playing a greater role in the service process and demand higher levels of customization to sort and serve their needs. The more customers interact with or perform some of the services themselves and demand more personalized services, the more problems the service organization might or will experience. So have a look at the example on page 245, but it boils down by how a service organization can solve this increasing problems, and they have to recruit the right customer. They have to educate and train them to perform effectively, and they have to reward the customers for their contribution in terms of co-creating the service with the organization. You have to be able to apply to a case study and provide suggestions on how any organization can recruit, educate, and reward their respective customers for participating in the service delivery process. A last topic that we need to discuss, and I'm sure all of you have experience in some shape or form regarding this, but as an organization, as a customer, you want to avoid the outcome of inappropriate customer participation. The more customers participate in service delivery processes, the greater the chances are of inappropriate customer participation occurring. If customers do not know what is expected of them or are not clear about the role they are expected to play, they might have a negative experience when using the service. So if you file your tax return incorrectly because you're not sure what is expected or what to do and you get penalized, it's going to be bad for everyone involved. Customers using an airline self-check-in point or filing your tax return can reduce the effectiveness of the service if they do not know how to operate this app, website, or ticket booth. And then from this example, it is clear that the lack of knowledge about how to use the service influenced the employees of the organization as well, because now you have to go back to the branch and they have to sort out the mess that you made with your tax return. And then these employees will have to provide unanticipated assistance, and this may lead to further stress and frustration for the staff, which defeats the purpose of the self-service in the first place. This is the part where I'm sure some of you have dealt with several of these types of disruptive customers, and there are 7 different types that you should be aware of. For example, inattentive parents with naughty kids. We've all have this in either Pick and Pay, a different service delivery, or at a theme park or anything like that, where kids are naughty and then the parents simply don't care. They are partying on their own and leaving their kids to be naughty. But this definitely impacts your service experience. Also, outlandish requesters. And this type of service user believes that the customer is always right and takes advantage of this. Yes, sometimes the customer is always right, but not if you are actually the one that made the mistake. And now you go and make several requests that are just out of this world. Then hysterical shouters, also very popular. If you hear someone in the corner shouting very loudly at an employee, a manager, or anything like that, this is also a bad impact on everyone else in the store or the service experience. Oral abusers goes hand in hand with hysterical shouters. So these are people who swear at or orally abuse other service users or staff members. If someone jumped the queue and you start verbally abusing or orally abusing this individual, then it's going to be a bad experience for everyone involved. People with poor hygiene. So now you have to stand in the SARS queue and you have to file your tax return because you don't have data or you don't have a device to do it yourself. And then there's people in the queue with poor hygiene, and then you have to stand there and deal with that, and that's not necessarily a nice experience. Service rule breakers. So this type of customer does not adhere to the expected rules of or social norms of the service provider. So again, someone cutting the line and then they get someone that hysterically shouts at them or they abuse them verbally or whatever the case may be, but they break the rules and this is not on. Lastly, ignorant customers. So this type of service customer takes a lot of time, disregards common sense service procedures, and does not take others into consideration. So these ignorant customers take up extra time by asking staff to explain unnecessary information that they can simply find in the FAQ section on the website or anything like that. And now the queues are becoming longer because this ignorant customer is taking or wasting everyone else's time. And that brings us to the end of this unit. So hopefully after this unit, you can see how you should manage your customers' roles in service delivery. Again, if you have any questions, please make sure to reach out.